What is up, guys? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Bearded Talk podcast. Super excited to have you guys here and talk with Jordan Voth later today. But I just wanted to hop in here and let you know about something cool we have going on. Of course, you know I'm always bragging about our Facebook group. What I really think, though, is we've just been pushing it this year as a place for more education, more free education from the same people that you know and love from the podcast. I'm like, let's get a visual in here. Let's dive down. Let's make it a fun event. Let's have the community aspect, right? Because you're probably listening to this alone. And I'm like, well, let's combine all the people who love the Bearded Talk and the guests that we bring on and the topics and have a place where we can all talk about that. So a really, really cool. I want to invite you to July 21st. Maddie May is going to come into the Facebook group and talk about everything elopements, like how she transitioned from photographing traditional big weddings to, less than 25 person elopements all around the world, how she basically transformed the elopement game with all the resources, everything on her site, her Instagram, her team of Amber and Tori as well, who are just incredible, and just a badass woman-based business, which I think is really cool. So if you don't know who Maddie May is, one, get to know Maddie May. Two, July 21st, if you've ever been interested in elopements or adventure weddings or anything where it's kind of incorporating intimate micro with also adventure and hiking and all kinds of stuff, then, or even pioneer sessions, if you've heard that from Robert J. Hill, come watch Maddie May talk about elopements. It's going to be incredible. July 21st in the Bearded Talk Facebook group, 7 p.m. EST, and we would love to have you there, togfb.com. Our guest today is Jordan Voth, the incredible photographer based out of Seattle. He has been featured, I feel like, in every magazine ever, so I'm just going to say that. And his work is just incredible. The number one thing I love about Jordan, other than his personality and good looks, of course, is that his work is incredibly consistent. There are few people that you just go on their Instagram feed or look at their site and everything just matches up. It's one of those things that for me personally, I aspire to have my work be as aesthetically curated as his is. And so he's just an incredible photographer. We talk about his story and his mission, and let's just jump into it. So without any further ado, here's Jordan Voth. Dude, so thankful that you could come on the podcast. I want to know, for the 4 people who don't know who Jordan Voth is, tell me a little bit about your background. And I feel like I, of course, always bring people on and have my set of research, but there's probably some gaps in that. So I'd love just give me the Jordan's take on how long you've been a photographer and how you kind of get started and what you do now. Yeah.
So I started shooting it probably 12, 13 years ago, pretty much when I graduated high school and kind of went off to college. And that was my first kind of taste of using a DSLR. And I started going to a lot of shows and concerts and photographing bands. That's really what got me more into photography. And around that time, I still had a lot of friends who were seniors in high school, or my sister was a couple of grades younger than me, and my stepbrother, he's 4 grades younger than me. So I had tons of ties still to high school. And so I started doing senior photos for people. And that was kind of my first taste of portraiture and getting used to that. And I really, really enjoyed that. That was pretty fun. And I kind of just photography has always been just a thing for fun for me. And I always just really enjoyed taking photos and the whole process of it. It was never a thing I wanted to do as a career or a job or whatever. I never really expected to make any money from it. It was just, just a hobby. And I think, I was in college. I went to that college specifically to do forensics, and was kind of sitting in class one day. I was I don't know if I could actually do this for my entire life as a career. I can't get into it. Sure. So I switched over to general business, just thinking maybe I'll find something that falls into that category that I like. And was sitting in an accounting class one day, and I remember the teacher talking about this is how much accountants make right out of college. I was oh, that sounds like a pretty good number. And I enjoyed it. The class was fun, and I felt I was pretty good at it. So I was well, I'll just switch to accounting as a major. So I did that. I double majored in accounting and then finance, and had an economic minor. And then after college, I pretty much went and got a job at a company in downtown Seattle, and worked as an accountant for 2 years. And throughout this whole time, I'm still shooting. Eventually, I think in man, probably like 2013 or something like that, 2012. I finally shot like my first wedding and got a taste of that. And that was like a big moment for me because I always avoided weddings like no other. Like it was such a nerve wracking kind of thing to take on. Like, I hadn't even really ever been to a wedding before. So no idea what to even expect and like how to manage like shooting everything. But finally did it a couple times, like kind of got more and more used to it. It was a lot of fun. And then just kind of just started like, it was just a giant snowball of like starting to kind of move more into that realm of things. And so, basically like around the end of February 2014, we got notice that our company was getting bought out. So we were all going to get laid off at the end of the year. So it was kind of cool because I had 10 months to prepare for this layoff to happen.
Sure.
So I was just like shooting as much as I possibly could over that time. And my manager was super cool with letting me like take time off of work to like go travel and shoot, but like still get my work done at my actual job. And so it made the transition from getting laid off into full-time photography a lot more bearable and pretty easy, honestly. I think I had a pretty ideal situation where I was getting severance pay in January and February when it's like our slow time. And then as things start to kind of build back up, it was, I think clients were kind of rolling in and so far, I mean, from there on out, it's been pretty good. So except for 2020, dude. now it's a shit show.
Yeah. Everything is crazy, but maybe some of the skills you learned back then, you'll use now.
Yeah.
Of course, with the craziness. So that's awesome, man. And so all of that, kind of the general like Seattle, Washington area, though, that's been your kind of vibe and your place, your home base.
Yeah. I mean, I've born and raised in this area. Like I grew up just like half an hour, 45 minutes south of here. I've lived in Seattle itself for, the last like about 7 years now. So, it's a blast. I mean, I travel a ton too. So, it's fun experiencing other places, other locations. But I love having Seattle be as like be a home base to come back to. Like there's no better flight than coming back to Seattle and getting to fly. And it's my favorite. So I'll be here forever. That's for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I love that. I feel like, a lot of, at least for me, even in my like early 30s now, it's hard to find that, because your whole life you go from, middle school to high school to college from job to job to job. And it's hard to find that sense of peace and that balance where you're like, okay, I feel this is my forever place. But I love hearing that you're like, oh no, Seattle is, outside of an act of God, like Seattle's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I didn't really know that until in 2011, I did a road trip with my buddy around the United States for 2 months. And I think we went through like 30 something states. And cause I hadn't really done a whole lot of traveling prior to that or even experienced other states. And so it was like, I kind of assumed that what was in Washington was kind of everywhere else as well. So I was really, took for granted, the scenery, the locations, and just like everything that it has to offer. So, getting to travel around, I was like, oh man, like Seattle has it pretty good. Like we have a lot of different, we've got mountains and lakes and the ocean and like all this other stuff, like very accessible. I mean, you go like an hour each way and you have a different type of terrain to go hang out and explore. And so yeah, it was kind of eye opening to just see the rest of the United States and get to then kind of decide, okay, do I like somewhere else more? Or like, no, I love Seattle. So been hanging here ever since.
Dude, that's incredible. I love that, man. So tell me, I didn't know this, that you kind of got started like shooting bands and senior stuff. Like we've had a few guys on the podcast and gals who, were music photographers, or at least for me, that's how I got my start as well. Yeah. Like I toured in a metal band and then just brought my camera with me and like had access. Yeah. So I was just at shows anyway. And then it's heavy metal, so it's the hardest stuff to shoot.
That's so fun.
You learn real quick about like high ISO. You're like, oh yeah, 6400 in 2012, is like very much happening. So that's super cool. That's awesome. Were you, are you a musician yourself too?
No, not at all. I mean, I played drums like when I was a kid for like a brief period of time, broke my arm around that time. And that's kind of what got me out of it. And at the time, I don't think I had a huge interest in it anyways. Looking back now, I wish I could have stuck with that. And like, I really do have an interest now, but so maybe at some point I'll try to, maybe take some lessons here or there, but no musical inclination in me at all. Like I am not, it's terrible.
What, shifting gears a little bit, I want to know, I think you're one of those people that I don't think it's just your Instagram feed. I think it's just your website. Like overall, every work that you show publicly, and it's probably very intentional, has this like I feel if you plugged it into that like Adobe Color program, it would show like two colors. But I like that. I'm like, it's so consistent. And I'm just, every time you post, I'm like, oh, this is a great photo. This is amazing. You know, like whatever. And then I'll look at the feed. I'm like, oh shit, of course it matches everything. So I want to ask you, like, has your style always been like that? Or was there a shift? Like, you know, a few years ago you said, all right, this is my style. This is what I like doing. Like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for like, my style, I am a creature of habit. So I still shoot with 5D Mark IIs, which are like, I have like 5 of them now. And
I love it.
One of them is, I think I got back in 2010, 2011. So I mean, I'm shooting with like 9-10-year-old cameras. And so that's one part of it. I just love the Mark II colors so much. And then I mean, even my post-processing, like I keep it, it's been pretty much the same with tweaks here and there throughout the years, like for the last, probably like 5 or 6 years, I would say. And so it's like anything I've shot in that time frame for the most part looks fairly similar here and there, with like some tweaks here and there that I feel like I've just learned different stuff over the years where I've added that or implemented that into my processing now. But totally. I guess it's just like I kind of found a method that works for me in terms of like using, and I also use Photoshop, which is ridiculous. And I know a lot of wedding photographers like use Lightroom. I've never opened Lightroom in my life. And so
now it's a badge of honor.
It's crazy. And so, I just pretty much like it works for me. Like, and I just haven't really changed a whole lot. And it's still like, it's consistent. And, it's I don't know. It's wild. And I guess I also like, I'm a very particular person when it comes to locations and lighting and just like trying to find the similar types of like stuff that I like to shoot in, which I guess also probably helps keep things cohesive.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things, it seems like in a lot of your work, and, you know, some photographers, obviously you can see like quote unquote, like, you know, backlit images, but I think in your work, it almost seems like it's so consistent that it's like, you know, I think of like your photos of Emily, which I feel like, you know, is one of the models for the shop. You photograph her a lot. And then like some brides, it'll be from like the same angle and everything. So like, what does that look like for you ideally? Like when Jordan is like, okay, this is when we're doing the shoot, give me 25 minutes and I can still make this look like my work. Like, what's that look like to you?
So like in terms of like, I mean, I guess like trying to shoot like at the right time of the day. And like, so I'm like, if I can't shoot in the evening or something like that, or like someone's not available for that, I'll try to make sunrise happen. Like, just basically avoiding like the worst part of the day. I try to be flexible with clients. Like if they, for some reason can't do like I try not to shoot on the weekdays for like, or like the weekends for like engagement sessions and stuff like that. But if like, if they have to do that in order to have like a better session with like better light and stuff like that, then I'll make that happen for them. But I guess just trying to keep things like consistent timing and locations. It's also like, it's crazy too, cause, everywhere has seasons, but like in Seattle, like there's definitely significant like differences between shooting in the winter, summer, spring, fall, with like even just the lighting and stuff. Like a sunny day in the winter is very different from a sunny day in the summertime. So trying to also keep in mind like the look that I'm going for a shoot is going to be different times of the year. So if I want this like maybe like really golden, you know, sunset-ish kind of look, it's harder to get in the winter time. So I guess just kind of knowing like where to, like what time of year to shoot for certain things. And if I can't get that in that location I'm at, like, can I go somewhere else and get that like down in California or somewhere where, you know, it's a little bit more sunny more often and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. So you think you'll move from Seattle to California someday? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I thoroughly love visiting, but I could never live there. There's no way.
Get that good light, you know, year round. You know,
it is awesome. It is awesome. Although lately I feel like the last few times I've gone down there, it's been like just dumping rain as soon as I show up. So I'm just like, I'm a bad luck charm, I guess.
That's the worst when you show up to a location and you're just like, you're so pumped and you took a lot of planning or whatever, and it just looks like trash. You're just like, oh, like because I think too, I don't know if this goes through your head, but oftentimes, you know, you show up to a shoot and you have to do this and like, it's too late to turn back.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I want to do my best and it's going to be awesome. And I feel like sometimes it turns out amazing and you're like, oh, this is actually better than I even anticipated.
Yeah.
But even if you like get, you know, what I usually say is like, oh, you only gave yourself like a B plus on this work. The client's still pumped, but you're like, oh, like if we just had like one more second of light or one more like, it's a buddy of mine, Jabin. We always talk about like chasing the dragon. You're like, oh, it was good, but if we could just come back tomorrow, like we're chasing the dragon, like we're
the
trying
South Park
to eke
episode.
out. Yeah, exactly. We're just trying to eke out horsepower. You know, like, okay, we don't want like, you know, we're already going as well as we can. Everybody's happy, but it's like part of our artistic like desire is like, oh, we could get a little bit better.
Oh yeah,
you know?
totally. Yeah, there was I did a maternity session with a friend of mine. I think it was like mid to late January, and you know, we were scheduling it for Joshua Tree, and like I know Joshua Tree is definitely cooler like that time of the year, but man, it was freezing and I felt so bad. And like when I flew down to California that day, like it was raining, and thankfully we didn't get rained on, but it was just like it was so windy, and which just makes it even colder for her. And I just felt so bad, but it worked out the best it could. But obviously, like, it's not the most ideal conditions to shoot in, so. You just got to work with it. But it's like, yeah, like maybe tomorrow would be a little bit better, not as windy, and then we could get even better photos. But yeah.
And it's like, do they, you know, we're usually dealing with people who don't feel super pumped in front of the camera. So you're like asking for more. Like, hey, can you actually do this again? Or it's delayed, or, you know, it's different times. So that dynamic too, you might be losing something there, because if you're making somebody wait or they don't feel comfortable. So, one of the things too, you mentioned shooting a maternity. That's the other thing too, bro. Like you shoot weddings and engagements, but then also shoot, you know, essentially like models or portraits, and then maternity as well, which I feel like is usually anti like what you hear. Like you always hear like niche down. So like in theory, they're like, oh yeah, Jordan only posts wedding photos, and that's not the case. Like, how do you think about that, strategize, or you just like shooting everything? And I know you have a shop too where you sell like women's swimwear. Like, how does that get incorporated to it? Like you shoot a lot. You shoot a lot of things, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I just like shooting, and like obviously I started out in like more of the portrait stuff and like shooting like more like lifestyle fashion type work. So that's always been a creative outlet for me. And it's been really cool with the store because we constantly have, you know, clothing, because we sell pretty much everything, like pants, tops, dresses, jackets, swimwear, you know, there's everything. So, we're always getting new stuff in, and it's always, you know, important to have, you know, social media stuff to post. And so, yeah, it's been like kind of cool to have that as like a creative outlet, because there's a really cool balance between shooting stuff for the store and then shooting wedding work as well. And I feel like whenever I get, you know, maybe overwhelmed or just exhausted with like shooting couples, I just can schedule a shoot for the shop and kind of have a different mindset and different outlook. And I feel like it just kind of recharges my batteries on both sides. So I never get sick of shooting now, because I feel like it's always something different for the most part, which is fun. And as in terms of like posting stuff, I mean, I've stopped caring long ago how things perform online. It does not, you know, it doesn't matter to me. So I just post what I feel like post. I mean, I don't have a schedule of like, I'm going to post this day. I literally just like, if I wake up and I'm like, I think I'm going to post this photo today. I don't have anything planned out. And I do try to like balance the wedding stuff with like the portrait stuff and not overload one or the other sometimes. Cause I know most people probably follow me for the wedding work. So I don't want to like necessarily, you know, not post that at all, but, just a good balance really.
Yeah. I mean, outside practically, if you don't mind, like outside of the shop is, you know, weddings for you. You're still your like bread and butter as far as like financial, you know, that's where most of your income's coming from. Yeah. So it's hard. It's like Instagram is like part of your marketing. So you're like, all right, I don't want to like abuse this, but at the same time too, I mean, we're in the same boat. I feel like those times when you post other, you know, extra wedding kind of things, extracurricular kind of things, your clientele, I think that's what I love about your work, is that like your, you know, stuff that you shoot for the shop, your model stuff, your portrait stuff, like your wedding clients also like that stuff. Or like, I feel like you have a good sense of this like kind of couple, or usually kind of woman I see like a lot on your feed that just like is very cohesive. So I feel like it like fits your brand anyway.
Yeah.
So you're doing a great job either way. Like, you know, like that's all I'm saying is like, man, this episode's just going to be about like a cohesive brand, and Jordan's going to be like, I'm just a control freak. I don't know.
You know? I guess, I mean, I don't know. It's, I feel like I don't care that much, or like, feel like I'm too much of a control freak, but maybe like under, you know, Subconsciously I am. I don't know. It's
Yeah, no,
wild.
totally. Yeah. It could be. It's just cool. I mean, just to see you kind of shoot that. It makes sense too. I thought literally I was thinking the other day, I was like, oh man, Jordan does all these weddings and he's so good at these portrait sessions, these model sessions. But now knowing that you've been doing that for a while and you even started with that, I'm like, oh, okay. It wasn't like he just does these as an offshoot. Like the dude is awesome. And I imagine too, with your girlfriend being involved and all the people involved when you do some of the shoots for the shop, it's like you can have a little bit more, creative input, and you have a team effort, which is great. Whereas like weddings are on your own.
No, it's awesome. And I know like shooting stuff for the store is always, it's sometimes different too. Cause it's like, you're trying to really shoot the clothing aspect of it and like showcase that part of it. And like, sometimes we'll have like our shop manager will come out with me to a shoot and like, she can offer like, make sure you shoot this from this direction, like, or make sure you get a close up of this part or, whatever. And like, there's always like so many things running through my mind when shooting. It's really helpful to have other people there to kind of help guide that stuff. So that's been pretty cool too, to have more of like a team sometimes. And we usually do like a store trip, to Joshua Tree every year. Fortunately, this year got canceled, but we go out there, we like stay at an Airbnb somewhere out there and we just like get a bunch of samples for future deliveries and we just shoot a bunch of stuff and it's been a blast. So we're looking forward to doing it again whenever we can. But it was a bummer to have to miss it this year.
What's that like when you're doing that kind of shoot? So do you hire like a few models, or does, the people through the store kind of, it seems like there's a small crew. I've creepy enough to follow you enough that I feel like I know some of their names. It seems like there's a small crew to pick from that you can actually use and work with pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, like we're still a newer shop. And so, I mean, there's always, budget issues in terms of like wanting to hire like signed models and stuff like that. Like that just becomes, a little bit tough. And so, there's just, I've built just such a network with people over the years. Like it's fun, and it's almost more fun just to shoot with your friends. And so there's people that I've just become good friends with that continue to shoot with us and support us. And it's a blast. And, they get content for themselves and stuff like that. And then they're helping us out as well. So it's just a really fun team effort. But yeah, it's really just been like people I've met over the years who I've become really good friends with, and even like past wedding clients who I didn't end up becoming good friends with. And then they also have an interest in that as well. And so then they start doing it. So it's been fun.
That's super cool, man.
Yeah.
Tell me about, I feel like you've been featured a lot, but I feel like one of the big weddings last year was, again, creeping that I know their name, but like Lauren and Edmund, like this wedding, I feel like it blew up everywhere, and everybody was like, okay, yeah, this wedding is fucking badass. And like, these people are stupid good looking and we hate them, but we love them. And then their wedding is just like, it's a photographer's dream. Cause the one photo is like, it's bokeh filled. Yeah. Like they just had all these string lights. Like, what the hell, man?
Oh man. And it's funny too, cause that was probably one of my most stressful weddings the entire year. So that was, I guess that was the end of 2018. Cause I didn't really, first of all, I just released a new website. So all of like my old blogging that I've been putting out recently is like still stuff from like a couple years ago. But, I first met Lauren and Edmund, like, I think I shot their engagement session in January out in Joshua Tree, and they were like super fun to hang out with, super fun to shoot with. Lauren was like around that time also starting a clothing line. So I kind of hung out with her a couple of times afterwards, and shot stuff for her stuff. And then also for our store that she started modeling for us. So I kind of got to know her pretty well. And I know every time we would shoot, I talk to her about the light and like what I'm looking for and like, why we should shoot at this time and that kind of thing. So that kind of started to get into her head a little bit more. And so when it got closer to the wedding, there was the normal ceremony setup at that venue. It overlooks like this little like greenery plateau. It's got like these like cool mountains in the background, but it's all like front lit, and it's like front lit almost from a side with like a couple palm trees. So you kind of get like this like dappled, really shitty lighting on the bridal party and the couple. And so I was kind of she called me one day and like we started talking about that. That was like a really big concern for her. And she had texted me a couple photos of the ceremony setup from like past weddings. And I was like, well, this looks good because it was a cloudy day and it was, it's even lighting and it looks fine, but you really can't plan for that in California. So I would, this is more realistic of what it's going to look like, showing her like one of the photos, like with it just being like super bright and like kind of like crappy lighting. Cause I think I think she would have been in the like direct sun and he would have been in the shade, and just, a photographer's nightmare basically. So she ended up going to the venue and like talking with her wedding planner, and they were able to kind of figure out a solution to just adjusting the way the ceremony was set up and to point it a different direction.
Sure.
Which actually worked out super, super well. And then I guess the other part too, so that for that wedding specifically, they weren't going to do a first look. This was my last wedding for the year. And it was like, I think it was in like early November. And they were getting married, like, probably like an hour before sunset. And it's like, there's just a lot of stuff you still have to do afterwards that I'm like kind of nervous. So like leading up to it, I knew that we were probably going to have a solid 45 to probably like 55 minutes after the ceremony to shoot like wedding party, like the couple photos, detail photos, like cocktail hour, that kind of stuff. And so I ended up bringing in, they had a second shooter included in their package, but I ended up bringing in a third shooter just for like 2 hours. So basically from like right before the ceremony and just like right through the end of cocktail hour, I basically had one guy shooting cocktail hour, my other friend shooting details. And then I shot all the family photos, bridal party photos. And then we went out and did portraits. And, it's putting your trust in the right people. And I have a really good group of friends that I know I can always rely on to help shoot stuff. And I know they can shoot stuff the way that I want it to be shot. So that was honestly the biggest part of it. Like there's no way I would have ever been able to do that wedding by myself. There were just too many things to do at one time. And so, so it was, it's crazy though. I mean, I never really expected it to be the way it was in terms of like being popular on social media and stuff like that. But you never can plan for it. I guess it just happened. So
totally. Yeah. It's like, you know, the ingredients, right? And so you're like, okay, like great couple, great venue, great photographer. But, obviously on your end, you're like, oh, this is a stressful day, bringing in 3 photographers. I think that's the beauty of our job, is like making crazy-ish look easy and like, effortless, like you'd be like, oh, Jordan photographed this couple like riding on camels. They're like, well, yeah, but maybe his camera's covered in dirt now, or the behind him is a bunch of old forerunners and guys trying to get money, or whatever the situation is, depending on where you're at. So people don't realize that kind of stuff when you're doing that.
Oh yeah, I mean, specifically for those camels, I had to spend $1,800 on new flights because my flight got delayed so much. I missed a connecting flight, and in order to get there on time, I had to buy like completely new flights. And so there's a stressful story behind, I'm sure, so many people's weddings that they've shot. It's wild.
I can't imagine, dude. That's insane. That's insane. What do you think is like, so you've been doing this for a while and it seems like you've kind of found this groove. Like, what do you think is the biggest thing you've learned in kind of like finding your style and adapting your style? And I mean, like, for somebody getting published, a decent amount, like this is a loaded question. How do you shoot, details differently than you used to? What has that learning process been like, since those first few weddings?
Yeah, I guess, trying to shoot as much variety as I can. I know, so I typically shoot with a 35 and an 85, and I've talked with a couple of photographers, and it's always surprising to hear that I feel like a lot of people shoot a lot of details with only their 35. I'll even bust out like the 135 or 200 sometimes for some detail shots, just to get like that really kind of creamy, like detailed, like really like honed in shot. And I think that for me, for like details and stuff like that, like trying to kind of shoot, shoot for what the couple obviously wants and needs. Like that's always my first priority, but then also shooting in terms of like, I know what blogs and what publications are going to want as well. And it only takes an extra second to maybe, instead of just shooting stuff, only landscape, like shoot some stuff for portrait as well, because portrait detail shots are going to do way better on Pinterest and Instagram than just like horizontal and or cropped into just a square. So trying to make sure there's a variety of different stuff. And so I'm always an overshooter. I shoot a lot, so I have a lot to go through afterwards, but I feel like it's better to have more to go through than not. And I've worked with a couple florists before that have mentioned that, we've started talking afterwards, and they're always surprised when they get the gallery back because they have such a good variety of detail shots for them to post for their own work. And some photographers, I think, we're such in a time now where it's always like, moments over everything else. And that's really important, which I totally agree. But couple is still spending thousands of dollars on all this other stuff too. And there's these other vendors who also want to be able to showcase the work that they've done and be able to market to other clients and stuff like that. So I try to make sure that everyone's happy and try to get stuff for wedding planners and florists and all those other people, because a lot of my weddings I've gotten, over the years have been from those other vendors as well. So I want to make sure I keep them happy as well.
No, absolutely, man. You got to have your referral network, and like, even if you're like, I'm a moments over everything guy as well, but it's like the details and things going on, or even stuff for the makeup people. Like, even if you feel like, this is not that great of a photo, it doesn't really do anything for me. Like, that is almost, you're shooting those almost for business.
Yeah.
Like the couple is going to be pumped, but it's like, you're helping out the people who your referral partners, essentially like people who will bring you more business. And I think a lot of photographers like go through this balance of like, no, I'm an artist, I don't shoot that, or whatever. But then the balance of like, man, my mortgage doesn't care about moments or whatever. And it's like, I details do not excite me. I want to get better at them, actually. Even after doing this for 10 years, it's something that like, okay, how can I make this look pretty or whatever? Like, I feel like I don't have that style, to help out. So I have a lot of planners who luckily are so nice. They'll literally like, Adam, we've styled it for you.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah, for two bearded metalheads, this is what we're into. We need some assistance.
Exactly.
It's one of the things. So even just getting in the nitty gritty for fun, 35, 85 guy, shooting details. Are you an off camera flash for details kind of guy? Or do you kind of like let it roll depending on the scene? What is Jordan looking for? Like, what's the motif? Like, okay, I love this look. Like, what are you going for when you shoot details?
So, I mean, like most of I'll try to shoot natural light as much as I possibly can. Always.
Sure. Yeah. Outside of dancing, I guess.
Yeah. So I just started shooting with, actually, I guess like Lauren and Edmund's wedding. So the videographer at that wedding, they had a couple video lights that they were using. And that honestly was like a game changer for me. And that kind of opened up my eyes to like realizing that like, okay, some of these shots that I got wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have them using those video lights as well to help out themselves. So, I was talking to the videographer and I was like, dude, like what video lights are those? Like, I need to get some of those. And so I went home from that trip and immediately bought a couple, and I've been using them ever since. And it makes reception just such a difference. I mean, it's just so much easier. And I feel like has just like, I guess adds an extra element to it. And so for me, for details though, it's really just natural light, trying to find good spots. Most of the weddings I shoot end up being outdoors, so a lot of the details are outside as well. If it's inside somewhere, it's like trying to shoot near a window or something like that. I don't have too many situations come up now where I'm shooting in venues that don't have any windows and it's just like a dark, just a dark room. That would be difficult for sure. But that might be a time where you bring out the video light and like kind of play around with that and see what works. For me, it's natural light all the time, as much as I can.
Okay. Yeah. And then I guess with the lights, are you still going for that natural kind of look, or like, just for people who don't really know, or I think too, like video lights, that's like the secret weapon right now for photographers who are like, hey, if you suck at flash, you can at least like see this immediately. It's quick to set up. Like, are you setting up 1 light, 10 lights? What's your vibe behind that? Yeah.
So I'll be the first to admit I suck at off camera flash. Like it intimidates the crap out of me, but I feel like, I hate, because I'm an overshooter, I know that I would hate using off camera flash because it'd be so annoying with just like constant pops of flash every however many times for a moment and stuff like that. So I like video lights because like it's consistent. People don't know how much you're shooting. And it's a lot, you can really like, for me, I try to keep them pretty soft and pretty natural looking. I don't want it to be like a spotlight. I want it to be kind of just like just a little bit of extra, oomph to kind of light them up. And it helps with focusing as well, which is super awesome. So I usually will use 2 lights, and I'll usually use it for toast.
Nice. So even some people stuff too.
Toast,
like, why not?
And the first dance, like father's father daughter, mother son dance, and then once those are done, like and like actually like the dance floor kind of opens up, then I just switch to on camera or like my flash on the camera and just do like the shutter drag type stuff.
No, totally.
But I usually for like the toast, like I'll usually have one, and again, like it totally depends where the couple is sitting and like where the person giving the toast is sitting or standing. There's been a lot of like, that was one of the really great setups at Lauren and Edmund's wedding, was having them like turn around with everyone behind them. And that doesn't usually happen too often. It's usually like everyone, they're like looking towards everyone else. So I try to push for that type of a setup as much as I can if the reception setup makes sense for that. But so yeah, usually it's just like, you know, one light on one person, one light on the couple. If they're going to be somewhat close together, like just like one light kind of angled from the back and then one from the side or like in front on the side, to kind of just give them like a good amount of light on both sides. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah. It's just fun to kind of hear that philosophy. I feel like not a lot of photographers, or at least admit or talk about like using that kind of light, you know, video lights and stuff like that. And then just the idea of, you know, are you know, essentially I feel like for the details and for the people, like you're just trying to give them like more exposure at the very least, so you can like bring you know, ISO down, and then like you find your, I remember the old school way of talking about was like your contrast ratio. Like, do you want them to be really bright in the background to be pitch black? And you're like, no, that's like a spotlight effect. We do want it to feel, you know, somewhere between magical, you know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so it's interesting to hear that, like how that works out though. I'll have to we'll talk after the show and kind of pick your brain about these.
Yeah, sounds good.
Lights. Because that's one of the things too. I feel like you know, a lot of photographers, even if you're good at flash or whatever, like the video light is now a constant variable that you don't have to worry about. Whereas like OCF with, you know, different situations, whatever, like, and you can set up during, you know, cocktail hour, but on those days when things are not going great or things are pushed timeline wise, having the skill set or knowing that, oh, I just crank it up or turn it down. Like, are they remote? Because that's even more amazing if you could like do it from the camera or do it from your phone.
So the ones that I use are not. I've worked with a couple other videographers who have. Then like mine are, you know, they're semi expensive but not like super outrageous. I think they're like probably like $250 to $300 a piece. But I've worked with some videographers who have, you know, upwards of like $1,000 per light. And it's like they're like remote, but they're and like which is awesome. It's super handy and. But no, the other thing I like too is that like if someone's kind of moving or they move around or shift, you know, where they're at, they're pretty easy. Just like you can just kind of turn and you can visually see where the light's falling right away, and you can kind of know, you know, is it good where it's at, or do you need to do another shift or whatever? I think it's just a little bit easier for me to work with than trying to maintain like a bunch of flashes and worrying about cameras connecting to them and flashes not firing correctly or whatever. So
no, I love that. I love that. Well, dude, I want to know, you know, I just want to know everything about you, Jordan. Social security number and everything. No. But like when you're, you know, trying to shoot nowadays, and like, what's your ideal mindset when, you know, you're shooting a couple, and like, what is Jordan's, you know, Jordan's favorite session essentially? Like what gets you really excited? I know you used to travel a lot, so like what's your ideal situation for shooting and ideal couple? Like what's that look like for you?
For me, it's just just working with people who have the same mindset as me in terms of like being open to the whole process and not try. I know I'm not stoked to get in front of a camera. Like I hate getting my photo taken. So I understand that part of it. And I try to prep people as much as possible. That's like one thing I've learned over the years of trying to prep people even more than you might think you need to, just to kind of get them as comfortable as you possibly can. But yeah, I guess just, anyone who's just down to just like have a good time while we're shooting is like my favorite thing. If they're like having a good time with it, I'm always going to have a good time with it. My biggest challenge is always just working with people that might not be into it, and I'm just like trying my hardest like throughout the session, like to try to get them more into it. And usually by the end of it, they're always like, oh, like, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like that was pretty fun. So that's like my favorite outcome afterwards, is like having them realize that, oh, this wasn't, you know, it's so different now, getting your photo taken now, like relative to like 10, 15 years ago. And like, it was such a, like a posed kind of like, just not, I hated getting my photo taken when I was a kid. I despised it. And so, yeah, I guess just trying to make it fun for them. And obviously like the location can always bring some inspiration to it as well. And that makes me that gets me excited about it. And, but yeah, I mean, yeah, good, fun couples and just a good time. I mean, just good conversation and people who, are stoked to be there.
That's cool. Now, going back to kind of your style, like I think that's my main goal for this episode is like talking to you about your style, which I know you might be like, oh, I'm not a control freak, but I'm like, so I like to know, like, man, is it just happening or whatever? But so something I see in your work is a lot of like, couples who it seems like for, engagement sessions have very, not like similar outfits, but they'll rock like a dress and like a formal look.
Yeah.
Now, is that something that Jordan says, hey, this might be cool, you might like this is your style? Or do you think it's like chicken egg, like because they see it, that's the kind of couples you attract, vice versa? Hey, we want to do this, we love this other shoot? Or do you say like, hey, we're planning our engagement session, and you say, hey, here's some outfits that couples have worn, like especially you being in fashion and all that stuff, like how's that work for you?
Yeah, so it's in terms of like the people who like wear sometimes like more of a bridal look to engagement sessions, that I think it's kind of just is a combo of people seeing it and then people just doing it on their own sometimes, or having that idea already. There was a couple that I worked with a few years ago, and like she's like a fashion blogger prior to even like getting into or like getting engaged and all that kind of stuff. So when we did their rather than just doing like an engagement session, like we chose to kind of do like more of a bridal session, and she had contacted some bridal shops that she knew, and like, got a bunch of different wedding dresses, and we just shot like a bunch of different looks over like the course of like, I think like 2 days total, like probably like 3 shoots total. And so that was just kind of like it's almost a mix between like doing a bridal engagement shoot, but then also doing like a fashion type shoot as well. Which is pretty fun. And so that's like, then that shoot, when I posted that and like kind of started, when I blogged that, I've had a couple people reach out about, oh, like I'd like to do something similar to that for our session. And so they'll like, either reach out to a bridal shop and see if they can rent or do something like that. I've had some couples who, for their wedding, like they're keeping their wedding pretty small, and they're not really doing a whole lot, so they want to put more effort into the like engagement session. So essentially, just turning it into a bridal session, and trying to get some of those like wedding-esque pictures, but just not doing like during the wedding essentially. So totally. But then I guess in terms of like, I'm always down to help people out with wardrobe stuff and suggestions, and like here's what I think would look great in this location and stuff like that. There's been times over the years where people have showed up and like it hasn't been the best choices for wardrobe. Like it's nothing against like what they're wearing, but just for the location, like it doesn't make the most sense. And so I try to be, and I always want couples to be the most comfortable that they can possibly be. So I want them to wear what they feel good in, what they feel comfortable in, what makes sense to them. I don't want them to wear a dress if they never wear dresses ever, like that doesn't make sense. So, trying to just work with them to be like, okay, like, let me like, feel free to like, show me, what you guys are thinking. And like, we can kind of just pick what the best option would be for this specific location. And if you're set on this specific look, then let's try to find a location that's going to work best for that look, So,
that's cool.
Yeah. And that's actually worked out really well. I think couples really appreciate, the guidance on that, because they don't always know how certain things photograph and like what's going to photograph the best, like what color palette's going to work well. I guess that's been like a little bit of consistency I've been able to maintain, is like the color palettes of what couples wear and like where we go, like that kind of part of it. So, but cool. It's fun. It's fun to help out with that stuff.
How do you know, coming from a non-fashion guy, like how do you know what will look good with a certain location? Like, so for me, I'm usually a location first guy, and say, kind of like my couples will be, I'll ask them like, hey, do you have any spots in mind or whatever, which maybe you do it differently. So that's kind of leading the way. And then I always kind of give like outfit, recommendations from a few of our favorite shoots where people wore stuff, but like, what's Jordan's kind of, style guide for like what will look good in a certain, like, I think of your recent like New York City engagement, like that was really good. That was an example too, where they're wearing kind of formal wear for most of it. What was your kind of guidance between that for them? I think I'm trying to think back to that. I think she had probably sent me some ideas, and sometimes, what
what brides will do is like they'll send me like 2 or 3 dresses or something like that, and like, hey, which one do you like the most, and they'll go with that one. But man, I guess that's tough.
So Jordan, I'm getting engaged, or we're gonna have engagement photos. Like, take me through the Jordan process. Do we already know a location?
No. So
we'll
I mean,
say
like
downtown.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, like people will either have a location in mind, or at least like a general region in mind. Or they have somewhere super specific, or they're looking to have recommendations. So there's times where I'll, list out a bunch of spots and be like, okay, like what, here's where I've shot before. Here's some places that I haven't shot before. Here are sessions I've shot in these other places I've already shot it before. What are you guys thinking? What do you guys like? And kind of get an idea based on that. And then it just, after that, it's like, okay, let me know like what you guys are thinking, wardrobe wise later on down the road. And like, feel free to send over some options. And I mean, really just comes down to what they start sending me. And like, as long as it's not anything outrageous and like, like color wise, like, even, I don't know. I feel like you can make anything work for the most part, just depending on what the location is going to be like. And like, you don't really want to put like a super crazy pattern with like, then like a super, not pattern backdrop, but like maybe a really busy backdrop, And if you can kind of keep one or the other being simple and busy, it's usually going to work. So, I'd probably just ask what you are having in mind for what you wanted to wear. And then we'd go from there.
I love it. I'm just grilling you, man. I love it so much. But even that's good. Of like, okay, Jordan's preference, when shooting is like, okay, yeah, for having like, if we're going to have a busy background like New York City, let's have our outfits be more simple and less, solid colors or something that's like going to be simple. So that way there's in the final imagery, you get this sense, this easy composition sense of like, okay, yeah, that's my subject, and okay, that's my background, and it makes the images more powerful, like because you're planning this out, more intentional.
Totally. And I feel like even like that New York City engagement session, I mean, she easily could have worn white or whatever other color, but I think the black just really worked with like, it's such like a neutral toned area over there that like just like the black mixed with the browns and the reds and the brick and stuff worked out really well.
Totally. Yeah. She got to cut through kind of the like color aesthetic with the black, you know, just being like, okay, yeah, like I can be influenced by the sun and some other colors that are around, but like you could still see me. And then like, this is probably girl talk, but it looked good for her tan or looked good for skin color too, whatever.
Exactly.
So that's always good too. Are you, I imagine a lot of people come to you like, do you even get into the nitty gritty of like, hey, here's how to properly, get your self tanner going, or you just let people be whatever?
No, I have no say in that at all.
I used to tell people, give like one smidge or one sentence, like, hey, don't go overboard. Yeah. Like my style is very vibrant, so go halfway.
That's true.
Between what you.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely will tell. I'm always. If you can get your makeup done, or if you feel comfortable doing your makeup, like do that. But then if you want to get it done, like here's some recommendations for makeup artists. Like I try to refer out people that I know do quality work and like, are going to make, their lives easier, my life easier, all that kind of stuff. So.
No, totally. Can you tell me, just cause you kind of mentioned it, like, can you remember a session where they showed up and they weren't wearing something cool or they, it didn't fit and you kind of blushed and you're like, all right, here we go.
Oh man.
No names,
of course. I had one session. It was like a post-wedding session where an individual wore an Under Armour workout shirt. So I'm just gonna say that was it, and that was just like unexpected and like again like did not fit with the scenery that we were in. And so it's just a little bit more difficult to work with and like isn't probably as. And that was, partly on me because that was earlier on and I hadn't asked I kind of just assumed that they were going to be wearing the wedding attire again. So then it was like, oh shoot, like that's not what happened. So that's when I started kind of learn like, okay, I should probably make sure every single person is on the same page with what we're going to be wearing.
Totally. Yeah. Do you catch that? So you're prepping for your session and you're like, hey, if you're wearing something other than your wedding outfits, please let me know. Or like,
I try to, I mean, I feel like for the most part, there's always either if I feel like I have no idea or like I'm kind of unsure, I'll definitely reach out just to clarify and make sure we're all on the same page. But nothing like that has really happened since. So since then, it's been pretty solid.
It only happens once, so then you're done.
And that's how, I feel like that's how a lot of things are. Like, something happens and you're like, oh man, I need to make sure that never happens again. And then you learn from it. So
I always, one of the things I remember is, the lady, the bride wore this beautiful dress for their engagement session. I was like, okay, great. She's looking awesome. And the dude wore like a polo and shorts. And I had never cared about that until that moment. Cause I'm like, polo and shorts. I'm like, that could be my style, outside of being shot. But I was like, for your photos, you could have worn something else, or at least worn pants. And so now that's like a note in my engagement prep email. I was like, hey, no shorts, please. Like, unless we're at the beach.
Yeah,
like, if
exactly.
We're at the beach
Exactly.
And you're willing to risk it, like, awesome. But if you're not willing to take that risk, you're not allowed to wear shorts, or at least I don't think it'll be the best.
Yeah. Again, like, shorts can work, but it depends on the situation and the location. I feel like then it can work, but in some spots it's a no-go.
Yeah, unless they're like, we would like a frat party themed photo shoot, please. Thank you. Like, we'll be doing a kegger with Jordan later.
Yeah, that'd be something right there.
So, dude, outside of not doing anything right now, what did you have? What are there any exciting things left that you have going on this year? Like, I feel like things are going to be creative soon. Like, we're going to have online workshops, that kind of stuff. So, like, what are you pumped about for 2020 or 2021?
So far, all of my rescheduled weddings have been rescheduled pretty easily, and there hasn't been too many headaches with anything. I'm supposed to be in Mexico right now, actually, for a wedding, and that got postponed, obviously. So, but thankfully, like, that whole trip and everything just got postponed out exactly 1 year from now. So I'm hoping that next year, like, that still can go as planned. I was supposed to go to Costa Rica in March, and now I'm going to be going in January next year, assuming that things can hopefully be better by then. We're kind of talking about how there might even need to be another contingency plan for rescheduling from that date, because it could very likely be that that couldn't happen even in January. So, I've done a few like online one-on-one mentor sessions lately, which has been really fun. Just to kind of still be able to like chat with people and be able to, I guess, still make a little bit of an income, which is awesome, and find other creative ways. And I always have a blast doing mentor sessions. I think they're a blast to do, and just to be able to talk and help other photographers. There's a couple weddings I'm looking forward to at the end of the year, but again, it's all up in the air right now. So I know I was supposed to be going to Santorini in September, but I know they're kind of on the fence about things right now, as well as I don't necessarily want to travel that far with how things are going. So so we'll see. It's crazy.
That'll be nuts, man. Yeah, it's really like, I always ask, like, hey, what do you got going on? Like, what do you want to be pumped about? And most people are just like, right now it's like, we have no idea, like, what's happening. So
I just want to be able to like just do normal things again, and like be able to see my friends and hang out with them, and if we do like there's times where we'll have to like bump into an employee of ours and like see them, and I just hate feeling guilty about it sometimes, and like, we're obviously taking as much precautions as we possibly can, but it's you just want to be able to hang out and not feel bad about it.
No, totally. Exactly. Yeah. It's one of those things where you're just like, all right, like, better safe than sorry, but it's not fun by any means. So awesome, man. Well, hey, amazing having you on. Tell the people, where's the best place to, one, go see all your awesome work, and then two, if they're interested in mentorship, we love education here. Where's the best place to look for that? Yeah, really, my website and Instagram, those are probably the two best spots to check out. My website has a ton of new work on there, and like new engagement sessions, weddings, all that sort of stuff. I'm, thankfully with quarantine, I've got lots of time to blog even more. So I've just been updating stuff like crazy. But yeah, those are the two best spots, and I'm sure you'll provide a link somewhere, hopefully. Yeah. And then absolutely. Yeah, that's the best spot. You got to love Jordan Voth. He's one of my favorite photographers, somebody who I look up to, somebody who I've actually pursued mentorship with, and just a great guy who's been in the industry for a while. And so, yeah, definitely reach out, say hi on Instagram. Come join us in the Facebook group July 21st, or join us early if you want to see all the other past workshops for free. If you want to support this free podcast and just give a little bit, you can come join Patreon, patreon.com/thebeardedtog, where we've got all kinds of SEO resources, contracts, email templates. We even talked about like submissions for weddings, how to get your wedding submitted. So really, really cool, and would love to have your support. So thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you July 21st. Keep being awesome.